Welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs to professionals to help you go all in on your business. I'm your host, Ezra Brown. Without further ado, I'm going to allow my guest to introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Eric Lazar. I am a partner at SpeedPro Chicago Loop. We are a large format digital graphics provider,
That's
positioned about 3 blocks from McCormick Place.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Good.
So Eric, being in the professional entrepreneur space, there's everybody's in that professional world if you have a job. But, going in and being a partner and coming from different backgrounds, have you always had that entrepreneur spirit, or, is it something that, came along later in life?
I think I've always had the entrepreneurial spirit. This is now my third venture.
Okay.
My first one, I was as resume writing and job searches, doing that. I think it was a sort of a function of those who can do and those who can't teach.
Right.
When I came out of the Marine Corps, I struggled finding a job and was looking and sending a ton of resumes out. And I had great resumes, but probably not fantastic credentials. But I love to write, and so instead of being able to find a job in the market in the private sector, I sort of changed that experience of writing resumes and doing my own job search into a business of doing that for others. And then several years ago, back in 2008, I started a mobile marketing technology company, which
Okay.
was successful, and then eventually turned into SpeedPro Chicago Loop in print.
That's awesome. So 2008, digital marketing. All right. That's definitely something where you hopped into that new wave, as the internet was kind of getting popular. What's that change been like over the last, 10, 12 years, 15 years of that?
Well, I got out of digital marketing. I spent about in between the resume and job search gig and going into digital marketing. I spent about 15 years, 12, 13, 14 years, something like that, in more traditional media, in television.
Okay.
So I was a sales manager for a group of TV stations, which was, again, it was very traditional.
Right.
What I didn't have were digital credentials. And as I was in my mid 40s, I realized that, something, I may be a relic. It's like I know how to sell airtime, but the landscape of media is changing pretty drastically.
Right.
And I had a little bit of exposure to digital marketing while I was working in the television industry, and decided to go out on my own and, launch a small digital agency here in Chicago. And that did eventually, or that did actually, take root pretty quickly and had a lot of success. And, after a series of acquisitions and buyouts, I found myself on the street again after a private equity came in and bought that agency, or, bought that agency that had then been acquired and purchased several times in between. I was on the street, so I
Right.
had some money to go figure out something else, and I bought into SpeedPro Chicago Loop.
Absolutely. So kind of walk us through SpeedPro and kind of what you guys do with the graphics and kind of the design world. Kind of walk us through that endeavor, kind of how, obviously you just told us how it happened, but kind of what you guys do.
Yeah, so we've got 5,500 square feet located on South Michigan Avenue, right next to McCormick Place, which is one of the largest convention centers in the United States, if not the largest. Um, we have we have focused on sort of production per square foot, so we don't have a ton of
Okay.
machines. We have very, very fast machines and large machines, so we can get a
Okay.
lot out very quickly. Our focus has been really to service the trade show and event industry,
Okay.
particularly being in the third largest city. There's an expectation that things are going to move fast. There's obviously the volume of work because there are a lot of
Oh
people
yeah.
through. So we need to be able to handle that. Uh, so that while that probably represents a good 70% of our business, we do service, a lot of retailers here in
Hmm.
Chicago, and corporate requirements. So we actually have a very varied pool of clientele,
Okay.
but most of them do focus around the trade show and event industry. And we can do everything from decals to posters to banners, wall murals, vehicle wraps, pretty much anything larger than a business card or a brochure. And we don't typically do a lot of billboards, but we've got capacity as well.
Absolutely. I was about to say billboards are kind of a dying art, aren't they?
Well, I think a lot of it's going to digital. So,
Yeah.
but that was never really our forte. But we'll do huge building banners that are, that are going on the side of, that are going on the side of the building that you wouldn't traditionally think of as billboards, but more
Right.
around the sort of the trade show and event space when they're,
Yeah.
somebody into a building and looking to brand it for a show.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then what would you say is kind of like y'all's bread and butter? Obviously, there's you said the expo stuff, but what product would you say is kind of like y'all's main product y'all produce the most of?
I would say for the trade shows, it's a lot of banners, big banners, and what they'll call meter boards, which are, typically about 3 feet by 7.5 feet, that are just sort of totems that will be, that will help guide people through wayfinding. Is probably the best word, through a show. So those are the two that we're cranking out an awful lot of, but there's fabric structures and posters, other kinds of things that would also be used around the event space.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And see, the best part about this interview is I'm fresh off of I don't know if you know what BNI is.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So
Give
so
us a
we're big in BNI. Our whole office, like my
yeah.
boss used to go around Atlanta and start them, 20 years ago. But the person that presented in my BNI group on Thursday, they did graphics and things very similar to what you guys do. So I've kind of fresh on listening to it. When you said the vision boards, I didn't know how like much they mattered in y'all's industry nowadays versus like a banner or somebody just going out and digitally advertising that versus having it right there somewhere in a display. She was talking about that on Thursday and how it changes because she said they last forever. Is that true?
Um, the meter boards, I wouldn't say that they last forever. A lot of those things are actually event specific.
Okay.
So there's not you most of our clients are not reusing those again. Uh,
Okay.
if they're doing it in fabric, you can use the frame again, but you would have to switch out the graphic because whether sponsors change or locations of uh the seminars might change. So we
Right.
really look at a lot. We try to find things that could be reused and that we are being, conscious of the environment, that we're not doing a lot of waste,
Right.
try to mitigate that. And also for the companies, for the clients is, obviously if we can save them money and they can reuse it, great. But in that industry, I think most people are, have sort of reconciled the fact that they're going to need fresh graphics.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what would you say? So if you had that one business owner to come in, they're asking, "Hey, I'm looking for this, this, and this." How do you guys know kind of what to give them best? You don't want to sell them a chandelier when they need a lamp, or vice versa. If they need a lamp, you're not going to give them a chandelier. How do you guys kind of decipher that?
It's really through a series of questions. We try to do a really good client needs analysis. One of the things that I think that we differentiate ourselves is that we try to give an agency-esque kind of experience. Is both my
Okay.
business partner Rebecca and I come from marketing. Come from the agency, from the agency world. So it's a lot of questions in order to understand the client's needs. We do have
Right.
clients that have, that they are running shows. They know exactly what they need. They know the material. They know the sizes. There's not a question. They simply just send us the order and, hey, can we have it in 3 days? Sure.
Right.
For those clients that don't have as much of experience, that's where they do rely on us. We need to ask good, insightful questions.
Okay.
Certainly, understanding their budget is a really good parameter because you can do things on the cheap, or you can invest a whole hell of a lot of money. What's the look that they're trying to affect? How long does it
Absolutely.
last? The kind of stuff that that they do want to try to keep. So, what is it that what kind of materials and what kind of frames and hardware can we use that are salvageable, that are storable, and then transportable. They're soft, sort of the soft media can fold up and they can be easily shipped. Where the
Right.
hard media, if you're talking about the boards, is a little bit more difficult and requires more investment. So, we have to ask the questions.
Right. Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And then that kind of segue me in is, what have you guys done really well with Speed Pro? What was those one of those things that you kind of feel like is one of those things that y'all can lean on all the time, since you've been in the business?
Uh, One of the things that we can lean on, I mean, I think, for us, it's about the customer journey.
Okay.
That's what we're always thinking about, is trying to give our clients a special experience. When my business partner and I first came into printing, we always thought about the printer as being sort of the fat old guy sitting in the dark, danky place, just giving quotes. It's $2 a square foot, $3 a square foot. Uh, I think for us, it's differentiating ourselves through the customer journey, is being there to listen, taking the time to ask questions, just simple, just being courteous and friendliness. I
Right.
mean, that's a quite honestly, it's a big differentiator, and getting back to people in a timely manner. Um, you know, it is shocking how much business we get from clients that may have called two or three other printers,
Hmm.
just going through the list. And when they call us, and they're always shocked that one, we answered the phone, or two, that we responded to them, because they said, like, we've sent out like two or three requests to different printers and nobody's responded. That's
Hmm.
fantastic. So that's a wonderful differentiator for us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Customer service is huge because it makes, just I'm sure you're similar as this is like me. If I can't get somebody on the phone or talk with them, why would I want to do business with you?
100%. And I think in this sort of Amazon age where everything is automated and everything is digital, to be able to get somebody that's not a bot to respond to, to respond to an email that's not an automatic generation, or that somebody's going to answer the phone and call them back,
Yep.
that makes a huge difference. There's a
Yeah.
personalized touch which I think we've just lost from society. Oh, overall. So that's a
Absolutely.
is that we're putting faces with names and voice.
Everybody walks around like this now, all
100%.
the time,
Yeah.
all the time. And I catch myself doing it all the time. I can't say that I'm not one of the people that falls into that line sometimes. But no, we're big on customer service here, so I can appreciate that because we do merchant service. You mean
Right.
from the email, you knew it back, but we have an in-house customer service team. Like most 99% of people, you got a 1-800 number you call where it's, hey, if your money's held or you got a problem with this, you got to wait an hour to get a problem that could have took 30 seconds. Something that just one button click. That you might not have been able to do as the person as the client, but and after saying what you guys did really well, customer service is a huge aspect for that. But what did you say you guys kind of struggled with whenever you guys got into it?
Oh, that's interesting. What we struggle with, I think it was initially finding the right team, was trying to create the internal culture, of not only competency, but also, attitude, and trying to get that team to gel.
Right,
We're a small team. We've got, anywhere generally between 6 and 8 people. So every single person is a pretty fair percentage of the team.
right,
And trying to put together, while it doesn't seem like it should be difficult, trying to put together, let's say, just on average, 6 or 7 people where everybody's representing, you know, whatever, 12 to 15% of the team, trying to find those people that are all going to work together, that have enough overlapping skills that obviously you can't be too siloed with a small team, is
right.
everybody, there's a little bit of overlap. I think that had been the struggle for us for many of the early years,
Hmm.
and particularly through COVID when it was so difficult to hire.
Right,
I would say for the last 3 years, we've really been able to assemble a very, very strong team,
right.
understands, what our, sort of general mission is to, to be responsive, to put out great quality work, all of those, and get it right, because there's so many things that can happen in where there's a lot of human interaction in terms of production and proofing and those kinds of things.
Right.
We finally assembled that team, but that took us a long time. And I think I've always really actually been pretty fast to hire and slow to fire, which is quite opposite of what people say. So, I think some of that, maybe we should have terminated people earlier and let those, that relationship go on a little bit longer than necessary. Might have been a
Yeah.
struggle. As leaders, my business partner and I always felt that, if it wasn't the right person, that was on us, is we didn't interview correctly, we didn't train correctly, we didn't correct correctly,
Right.
and we had to look at ourselves as leaders, and we had to do everything to, we had to bear our responsibility. So, again, where others may have turned those team members over, we let it go on a little bit longer in hopes of rectifying it and giving them a fair opportunity to succeed.
Absolutely. And what would you say has kind of changed to where you guys like you feel like you're in a good place now? What do you think's changed, after COVID? I know you said it was the quick to fire, slow to hire, or slow to hire, quick to fire, vice versa. Whoa,
Yeah.
tongue twister. But what do you think's changed? You're saying you got a good team now. What does that change? Because it has been something that I've heard more this year doing this podcast, and I've done 20 this year. It's been something I've heard more recently this year than I've heard over the last 2 years.
I think there were a couple of things that changed post COVID. Is one, we outlasted some of the competition, which sort of shrank the market, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
While we had always really focused on what our corporate citizenry was.
Right.
We did have an opportunity to shine during COVID. We did a lot of initiatives that, quite honestly, was great PR for us. I think all of the coverage that we had, both locally and nationally, did an awful lot for our SEO, and put us on the map, well beyond our little, enclave
Right.
in Chicago. So that was good. I think, when COVID ended, people were willing to come back to work, which gave us an opportunity to go after more qualified people. Um, so, all of those things, and I think the market just opened up. I mean, our first 5 years or so, 4 year, 4 or 5 years prior to COVID, we were a new business. So we hadn't really gained that traction. We did have the 2 years during COVID. It was, we pretty much held fast. But by the time we got out of COVID in 2022, we had already been around for 7 years. So there were so many factors that there was a confluence of factors that it all just worked out for us. So when the
Right.
market opened up and trade shows came back, and we're 3 blocks from McCormick Place, and people are searching printer near me, our world just exploded. So I don't know if it was one thing. I think it was, really sort of a confluence of things that just worked on our behalf.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, good team's hard to find, man. That's one thing that we do have here that I can't complain about. We got 10 people in office
Okay.
outside our customer service, and it's our owners they've been in business together for 23 years now, 24 years, something like that, and that's what they've always said. They's like we always look to have the team that we got, that we've had now. We've been pretty good place for the last year and a half, I would say. And it makes a lot of difference. You come in, have a good time when you're in the office. It makes it more lax when you get out and go do your thing, because it makes you want to go do it, because it's a competitive environment. I'm in sales world,
100%.
so it's a little different. You know how that feels. You've been in sales.
I've spent my whole life in sales.
Exactly. So you know that exact feeling, like when you're around the good people, it makes you want to keep doing good. So it's a good feeling, and I think that's
Like
kind of what you guys
culture.
got going on over there.
Yeah, and that's what, culture is key, is finding those right people that gel.
Yeah.
You could have competent people, but if they don't get along with the rest of the team, they lose an awful lot of their value.
Yeah.
So,
That makes it no.
balance.
That's completely. I completely agree with that. I'm a former athlete, so I know all about that. I was a 5-year collegiate athlete, so I
Okay.
played baseball thrower. So I know all about that. You got real guy could be the best guy on the team, worst teammate, and it makes the team worse. Could be the most efficient.
Yep.
But no, Eric, what would you say that you're looking for? Down the road here, we're saying you got SpeedPro going. You ain't got to worry about no endeavors. You want to hang out. What does Eric want to do? Do you want to go hang out with the kids, play golf, travel? What is that you want to do?
Yeah, so over the last, I would say that the first several years, and there's no secret. I mean, any article that we've been interviewed for a podcast is, we've been really honest that, our first several years were so difficult. It was just, we were both just broke.
Right.
I hadn't taken a salary for my first 7 years, and I'm not ashamed to say that,
Right.
you know, at all. It was really a tough go. Over the last couple of years, as the business has really begun to thrive, I have made an effort to take vacations and to partake in some of those things that I had to sacrifice. So
Right.
I love to fish. And that's really been my thing. It's like I am just trying to jam out fishing trips, get on a plane, get out, and then get right to the beach or get on a boat and go out there and fish. And that's really that's how I finally feel validated and I feel successful is because I'm able to do those things which I just had to sacrifice and I just so dearly missed. So um, that's it.
Absolutely.
That's really what I look forward to.
So we're gonna get Eric a boat and put him out in Costa Rica and let him go.
I'll be happy. I'll be okay. Yeah,
I look. I don't know many
fun.
people that aren't happy out on the water.
Right.
So you do any trout fishing?
No, I'm not a freshwater guy.
Okay.
Saltwater is really it. I think the difference. I did some freshwater, a little fresh salt. Did an Alaskan fishing trip this past summer with a buddy of mine. It's not really my thing. It's like I tried. I think, yeah, for me, it's just it's going out there. It's jigging or trolling in the ocean is, for the most part, it's like, you're throwing some bait out. Anything could come up. Where in freshwater fishing, you're fishing for a particular species.
Right.
Uh, I just love the idea that I could wind up hooking into a mahi or a tuna, and I'm going to get sharked on the way up. And
Yep.
yeah, I love that thrill.
I love it. I love it. No, that's awesome. But no, the last thing I got for you, Eric, is really, the podcast is called Burn the Ship. Do you know where we got Burn the Ship?
No, tell me.
All right, so we got it from Central American conquistador Hernan Cortez. If you're a history guy, lands in modern day Mexico. Thought he landed in the U.S., but thought he landed on Plymouth Rock, but he landed in modern day Mexico. And he made his men disassemble their ships there and burn them on the beaches and like take all their supplies off and burn the ships. And that was his sign to their people that we're gonna make it there. We're gonna die trying. And we use that same sense in entrepreneurship. You did it with SpeedPro. You left something and went and bought into this. You could have stayed in a sales world somewhere and had a living where you didn't have to worry about it. But you chose to build something and build your own brand, and it's an awesome thing. But what was that emotion? When you fully went all in back on SpeedPro.
Um, I did something really interesting when I came in when I first signed the contract to get a franchise. I had there about 3 weeks after I had signed there was a franchise conference, and I asked the CEO. I said, "Do me a favor. When we're at that conference, introduce me to the top 10 players in the market, or the top ten players across the country. I'm going to
Right.
introduce myself, and I'm going to ask them if they will take me in for 3 to 5 days so I can learn what they're doing." And
Right.
I think that was the first thing because nobody had ever done that before. And for the next 2.5 months, I traveled coast to coast, meeting with all of the top players. And in some cases, because some of the larger markets had multiple speed pros in them,
Right.
I met with the weaker performing ones because I really wanted to see what the great ones were doing and also what the guys that were struggling were doing. And that was the first time because you go in and you're spending so much money on the franchise and the equipment and the space and the build out and all that other stuff, and to go spend another 10, $15,000 for 2 months of travel, between flights and hotels and food and all that, was sort
Oh
of
yeah.
crazy. And that's I think that was the first thing. It's like I'm in this. It's like I have got to be successful. I have got to structure, I've got to go find that top tier equipment. I've got to go structure the team. I've got to go figure out the markets I want to go after, the materials I want to carry. And that was I wanted to set myself up as $1 million studio before I brought in dollar one. That was my mindset.
Man, I
And
love that. It's
so
the first time I've heard that, and I love it.
yeah, we literally went all in. I mean, I built this studio like it was $1 million studio out of the gate. Is we did not sort of easily transition into anything. We didn't upgrade I mean, we've upgraded since, but we went in with basically what these packages of equipment and people
Yeah.
that the $1 million studios were doing, and just that was it.
That's
So that
awesome.
that was I think that was our burn the ship moment is like we're
Absolutely, it
in. It's
is.
like failure is not an option.
Yeah, absolutely. Investing that much time and money. Absolutely. That's the literal definition of this right here. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
Eric, leave the people with the last word.
The last word, don't be afraid to fail, is, quite honestly, it's like we've had failures. I think we try to take calculated risks, is look at it. Uh, but, be aggressive fear is a hell of a motivator. I think that is really it is put it all out on the line, make yourself uncomfortable is for again, probably 7 of the 10 years that we've been in business, I've been incredibly uncomfortable. It's like I think they're calculated risks. I try to evaluate. I see the benefit. I understand the risks. And if shit goes south, hey, listen, like I know I'm in trouble, but that's what keeps it from going south is because I cannot let it fail. My business partner, we cannot let it fail. Um, so yeah, it's like, take those calculated risks, do what you can to mitigate them. Don't be afraid to fail and realize that fear is a motivator.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Once again, thank you, Eric, for coming on. Everything for him will be linked down below. Burn the ship.